So let's jump right into this explainer. Looking at the data on our human history, there's this absolutely mind-blowing reality that hits you. If you trace your family tree back far enough, past the powdered wigs, the chainmail, and the mammoths, you're eventually going to stumble upon someone squatting in the dirt, chewing on a beetle, just trying not to die before sundown. That person, that's your ancestor. They have no name, no shoes, and literally no idea you exist. But here's the crazy part. You are the amazing byproduct of violent coincidence and just stubborn biology. If that ancestor, or honestly anyone in the thousands of generations before you, had tripped at the wrong second, gotten eaten by something toothy, or just failed to reproduce, you wouldn't be here. You exist purely because 1,000 people before you didn't die when they, well, really probably should have.
So, how close did your ancestors come to never existing at all? We're going to answer that by counting down 5 of the absolute deadliest periods in human history, ranking them from bad but survivable to near absolute extinction. Let's get right into it. It's honestly a jarring contrast between your life and theirs. On one side, you've got modern you, maybe dealing with a mild caffeine dependency or a late-night snack addiction. And on the other, your distant ancestor, whose main goal for the day was simply surviving their environment. Kind of puts our daily inconveniences into sharp perspective, doesn't it? Let's see exactly what they were up against, starting with number 5. Coming in at number 5, we have the Ice Age, specifically during the last glacial maximum about 20,000 years ago. Earth back then was not exactly a cozy place. Average global temperatures dropped by about 10 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 6 degrees Celsius, and massive 2-mile-thick ice sheets smothered huge chunks of North America, Europe, and Asia. Basically, it turned most of the planet into a frozen wasteland, where finding food was just a distant rumor. Your daily routine? Terrifyingly straightforward. First, try not to die of hypothermia while crashing in a cave with 40 of your relatives, or maybe in a hut made entirely out of mammoth bones. And speaking of mammoths, to get dinner, you had to go hunt those school bus-sized 6-ton beasts, who, by the way, actively wanted to kill you, armed with nothing but a sharpened stick. Oh, and you also had to dodge giant cave lions. Even if you survived the predators and the starvation, a simple infected cut could still take you out. 0 antibiotics, 0 vaccines. Medical care was basically chewing random plants and crossing your fingers. But hey, against all odds, Homo sapiens adapted, mastered fire, and even found time to make some early art. Moving on to our number 4 spot, we have the dawn of agriculture, roughly 10,000 years ago. Now, it actually blew my mind to see the massive gap between expectation and reality here. The idea to stop chasing angry mammoths and swap that nomadic life for farming sounded brilliant on paper, right? Let the food come to us, plant some wheat, build a permanent village. But humanity accidentally made life so much harder. By settling down in close quarters, we unleashed a whole buffet of new problems. Disease started spreading through populations like wildfire. On top of that, early human diets completely tanked in quality. People were eating way less protein, leading to severe vitamin deficiencies and teeth that basically rotted right out of their faces. And the absolute worst part? You were entirely dependent on one geographic spot. A single bad drought, one random flood, or a swarm of locusts meant total crop failure, and your whole village would literally starve to death. Archaeologists have actually found ancient skeletons from this era showing horrifying signs of malnutrition. So much for the peaceful farming dream. Entering our top 3 deadliest times to be alive. The Mongol invasions in the 13th century. Look, if you were alive back then and saw a cloud of dust on the horizon, you had exactly 3 minutes to panic before your city became a parking lot. Led by Genghis Khan, a guy who treated mercy like it was a total myth, the Mongols carved out the largest land empire in human history. Their tactics were brutally efficient. Show up fast, hit hard, and leave absolutely nothing standing. Entire cities were just wiped off the map. Sometimes, tragically, survivors were even used as human shields for the next battle. The Mongols basically invented mobile warfare centuries before tanks even existed, using highly skilled horse archers who could accurately fire arrows from 300 yards away while riding at a full gallop. It was terrifying. And what's truly staggering when you look at the data is that these brutal invasions wiped out around 10% of the entire world's population. 10%! And remember, this was at a time when the globe was already pretty sparsely populated. The sheer scale of that destruction is honestly hard for our modern minds to even wrap around. At number 2, things take a turn for the microscopic with the Black Death, hitting Europe in 1347. This biological wildfire was started by a package of highly motivated fleas carrying the Yersinia pestis bacterium. Because medieval society had, well, absolutely zero concept of personal hygiene, catching it was frighteningly easy. It traveled on rats, fleas, and humans. Honestly, you could catch it just by sharing a handshake or breathing the same medieval air as an infected person. The symptoms were a total nightmare. You'd get a raging fever, giant swollen lymph nodes, start vomiting blood, and usually face death within days. And the medical care? Doctors walked around wearing those incredibly creepy bird masks stuffed with flowers because apparently vibe-checking the dying was considered peak medieval science.
This devastating plague wiped out an estimated 30 to 60% of Europe's entire population in just a few short years. I mean, let that sink in for a second. Up to 60%. Entire villages were completely abandoned and economies just collapsed. It was a literal apocalyptic scenario for anyone living through it. But the absolute worst time in history to be born as a human? That happened around 74,000 years ago with the Toba supervolcano. When Toba erupted, it launched over 670 cubic miles of ash and debris straight into the sky. To put that into perspective, that is enough material to cover the entire landmass of the United States. This triggered a severe volcanic winter. The ash cloud was so dense that it actually blocked out the sun for an estimated 6 to 10 years. Global temperatures crashed by up to 27 degrees Fahrenheit or 15 degrees Celsius. And the result? Instantaneous, catastrophic global starvation. Plants withered with no sunlight, animals starved, and ecosystems completely collapsed worldwide. Lush forests quickly turned into frozen graveyards. For early humans who were already struggling just to find enough calories on a normal day, this sudden loss of food and warmth was an absolute waking nightmare. So, the result of all this chaos? Researchers estimate that during this catastrophe, the total human population on planet Earth shrank to fewer than 3,000 individuals. Just 3,000 people left on the entire planet. It created a genetic bottleneck so incredibly tight that every single person alive today, including you and me, likely descends from that tiny, desperate handful of survivors. Try to imagine spending your entire life in utter darkness, freezing cold, and constantly starving. Imagine waking up with the terrifying fear that today might be the very last day anyone on Earth ever sees the sun. No crops, no animals, no second chances. And yet, somehow, against all conceivable odds, a few stubborn humans refused to give up when literally everything else around them did. They managed to endure. You exist right now simply because they didn't quit. You are the living, breathing miracle of those ancient ancestors who fought off mammoths, endured the brutal dawn of disease-ridden agriculture, outran invasions, survived global plagues, and somehow made it through a 10-year volcanic winter. So take a moment today to truly appreciate your existence and your deeply stubborn biology before natural selection does its thing. What will you do with your incredible inheritance today? Think about that and keep learning.